right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. Keep your views coming at Trevor Mbidi at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Daybreak. We're still talking about the Whistleblowers Protection Bill, and I asked you, are you comfortable blowing the whistle? If yes, why? If not, still the same thing. You can tell us why. Honorable Kasalu, during the break we were talking about the content of the bill and what more can be done during the public participation, and I asked you whether is there a chance that someone who's a whistleblower can then be protected for a period of time against any sort of litigation, so that, like Spencer Sankale here, who blew the whistle, is there a provision that then within at least that year, when he's a person of interest and he's a whistleblower, is protected and immune against any prosecution? Because someone will always just try and find something, even something that started a long time ago, just to somehow victimize you. For him, it was cyberbullying.
I think that would be a fantastic provision to have it in the bill. Something I didn't mention, this bill will, the issue of whistleblower protection will be under the Commission of Administration of Justice. Yeah. And I want to believe those are some of the frameworks I can be able to put in place. But as it is, there's still provision, because this bill has to go through public participation, and the public will be invited to give their views when it goes back to the Eacc committee. So there's still room to have those views to be enriched, to be entrenched in the bill, so that you can have the whistleblower being protected wholesomely. Okay.
So when the public then comes in, they can give their different views.
They can give their different views. Definitely, yes, they can.
At what point will this happen? Considering our timing is now very short.
As I said, this bill is due for the first reading in the National Assembly, possibly today. After this is done, it is taken back to the Eacc committee. Now, the Eacc committee, of course, will go through the bills, be able to do a bit of proofreading and give some bit of body to it, and then it goes now to the public participation. The public participation is done at the Eacc committee. So they ask the public to come bring their views and to enrich more the bill before now it will come back for the second reading.
All right. Sankale, was the due process followed in your dismissal, in your own assessment?
Okay, in my honest opinion, no. And that's why actually we sought recourse at the courts. So it's still at the courts. So I won't dwell on that. However, maybe to add on what Honorable Kasalu is saying, you see the issue now of having, it's okay to have like a structured way, a public structured way of protecting whistleblowers. But we also want to bring it another angle from maybe other professional bodies, because it's not only accountants that are whistleblowers, and I know Eacc will be glad to have witnesses who are competent, who have the technical know-how. For instance, if you have people from engineers, they have an association. If you have an engineer telling you that this road meant for this amount of money was actually cut 10 centimeters this side and 10 centimeters this side, they will be able to demonstrate how and give you the monetary component and the effect of that. So that you have people who are competent. Even if you are prosecuting cases, you have people who are competent enough and have the technical know-how to do that. That's why we want to have as many professional bodies as possible. And you see, Parliament has led the way and has shown a lot of interest in having, you know, it's more of a public participation. You are doing it. Because if we have several people, several institutions, several professional bodies doing it, holding people to account, this thing known as corruption, maybe we might not reduce it completely, but it might be at the bare minimum, which would be a right thing to do for a nation. So for me, maybe when Eacc now come for public participation, it will be also a good avenue that we incorporate those other professional bodies. And I believe almost everyone now, yourself, I know you belong to a professional body. So you'll find even Yeah. So we want to go that direction.
Okay.
So that's why we're insisting a public defenders fund. It's needed to complement on what the government is doing. Yeah. Eacc have been doing it. He has stated it, but it is not bad if we have more people complementing it as opposed to people running away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mariah Kent here on Twitter says, what is the Eacc doing about the blunt law or legal framework?
Trevor, we are doing the best that we can in the circumstances, and we have had some good results, I must say. But that is because we are Eacc, I would hasten to add. You see, we have those rudimentary provisions that a person who is an informer, there should be no reprisal merely because that person has given information to Eacc. And not once, not twice, we have had instances where persons who have given us information, persons who are waiting to be witnesses, perhaps, because we have already interviewed them and assessed that they are good witnesses. And of course, in the course of the interview and calling persons for interview, everybody gets to know who is being targeted in terms of giving the information. So there are instances whereby persons, we can tell they are targeted for transfers and, those kind of, you are just told you have to go on leave or something like that. And we write and quote those sections. And we have written a few times, and we have seen organizations, we have seen even private bodies obeying and respecting what it is that we have written. Of course, like I said, we do have the safe reporting channel. We call BKNS. That is for reporting anonymously. That is, of course, to avoid and at a preliminary stage a person being targeted. We were stakeholders in the review of the bill as it was prepared in draft, and we participated and made our contribution. I was one of them to look into the bill. Go through it, ensure that it is meeting the international standards as expected of the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, and other bills which are out there, other laws which are already established in other countries. To begin with that of, I believe, the oldest, the American one, the one in UK, South Africa, Australia, and many others. So we participated, and Eacc also contributed the resources towards, ensuring that the bill is good. We have always raised the challenge, and we have always voiced that fact, that one of the challenges that we are having in the fight against corruption is lack of this law. And therefore, we have brought it to the public that it is very important, even long before this bill came into place. So we have played our bit, and we have advocated for it. We have participated in its refining, and we have done the bit that we can in terms of protecting those who are targeted. And there are within the cases that we are actually investigating.
All right.
Yes.
Charity, let me bring you back into this. So the moment this bill is passed into law, what more will you and ODC do to support Kenya to ensure its implementation?
In line with our work with the Kenyan government, we will continue to work with the key institutions to make sure that it's implemented. We will work, it is just the beginning. Setting the legal framework is just the beginning. Implementing it, making sure that it runs its course, is going to be the work that we commit to, working alongside the institutions that are key in its implementation. So we will continue to support with advocating for its knowledge, that people about it realize and that's available for them to be able to get protection. So we will basically commit to working alongside the justice sector and other stakeholders in implementation.
Okay. Let me bring in some of the feedback that's coming through on Twitter here and see what you're saying. Let's bring up the first one and see. I think it's from Engineer Lazaro. Yes. It says the law governing general witness protection is too weak and only exposing whistleblowers to the imminent dangers. Cases involving corruption, incitement, and drug barons are classified as death penalties to the witness or whistleblowers. Okay. Omariba Omwenga says whistleblowers protection is a need since whistleblowing is an ethical thing to do. This will address the wrongdoing and allow justice to reach depths of government institutions that remain unexposed. Jacob Abere says whistleblowing in Kenya is a risky work, more so when it involves high-ranking personalities with political connections and ethnic tags. Look at Gidongo during Kibaki administration. It's good we create a legislation that safeguards witnesses and families too. All right, actually, that's interesting. Let's talk about the family issue first. Then, Kasalu, is that part of it? Or is this just an individual? For example, when I whistleblow, am I then protected, including my family, or is it just me?
Well, I think that's a fantastic question. And I want to believe that when you put yourself out there as a brave Kenyan and expose this kind of corruptions, you are not only exposing yourself, but also as your family as well. Yeah. So this bill seeks to protect you wholesomely. Yeah. As it's protecting yourself, it also protects your family. Yeah. As my pedalist here said that once you whistleblow, of course, we'll have to do an investigation to establish whether you're being malicious or not. And in the process of doing the investigation, in the process of giving more information about this, then the commission in charge of implementing this bill will be able to establish what kind of protection we need and to what extent. Yeah. So definitely you'll be protected.
Are they then classified depending on, how do you classify them? Is it based on amounts? Is it based on public interest? Is it based on personalities? How will that be classified?
The risk.
Yes.
The risk involved. The risk involved.
And you measure this based on the person involved on the other end?
It has nothing to do with the person involved. Yeah. Let me give an example. And I earlier said that the whistleblowing is not only about economic crimes. Yeah. It is as well about social crimes. For the instance, the case of the COVID, where we had the gentleman exposed about the planes that were landing. Yeah. So depending on what is being whistleblowing, then the commission will be able to be able to know what kind of protection this whistleblower needs. Yeah.
All right, let's bring in some of the feedback that is still there. See, we're on Jacob Abere and Nakoti Mobimba. Says, Honorable Kasalu says if someone whistleblows, their rights should be protected and they will get a reward. How about their safety and that of their family members? In Kenya, you are safe if you keep your mouth shut. Otherwise, you'll die for nothing. Okay, that's what you just addressed now. Bing Charlie says, whistleblowing is a double-edged sword. And cases involving to officials in either county or national governments, it is a high-risk gamble. Bob Otieno Wino says, whistleblower protection bill won't work because the hunter becomes the hunted, like Mr. Sankale. Okay. Arnold Melik says, when you try that, these sons and daughters of Pharaoh will go after your soul. At the end of the day, it's your innocent son who will lose a loving dad or a mother. All right, you haven't put up that one yet. But Sankale, let me bring you back onto this. You know, some people say that this fairly almost falls in the purview of accountants. Because, and Eacc is here and they'll tell us they're dealing with corruption issues in counties, all the 47 of them. In fact, the Auditor General has given a very bad light of what's going on in the counties. Yeah. But somehow there's always an accountant who is involved somewhere. When you talk to your colleagues, what do they say? Why is it so hard to just come out like you did and say, this is going on in this county, I was part of it, this is where we are at, this is what needs to be done to stop it?
Actually, the reason I was telling you that I was in Mombasa, it was among the topics that I addressed. Yeah. Of course, there is a lot of fear that in most cases, it involves money. In most cases, even though you can see, like for the lady who was protecting the Kiambu forest just here, yeah, what happened? It was about environment, no money involved. But you see, in most cases, it involves money. Yeah. And you know, money is a risky business. Yeah? And in most cases, there is nothing that will happen without an accountant's knowledge. Yeah. That's why I say accounting is among the most noble jobs you can be given, because all the monies, whether for whatever purpose, it boils down to the coins. However, it is the risk or the assumed risk that is there, because you see, as a society, I think also we have really empowered those who are working hard to steal from us. So it's like you are giving the MAGA the upper hand. So it is them to determine what you are going to do, what you will do, how you will do it. And I have a very sad case of one gentleman known as Richard Jatani. I don't know whether you've heard of him. He was in Marsabit County. He was actually poisoned by a friend. Yeah. So you see, it's both ways. Most people imagine you'll be shot, you'll be carjacked, but it's a whole range of cacophony of ideas of how to get rid of you. So yes, the risks are there, and it's a thankless job. Yeah, but someone has to do it. Yeah, I usually I love using the analogy, a very funny analogy. If you own a hotel and you have a lot of clients and you have a burst sewer pipe, someone has to do it. But who takes the credit at the end of the day? The owner of the hotel will say, we fixed it. But you'll never remember the person who did the dirty job. So someone has to do it. Yeah, and you see, it's nothing actually that is out of the ordinary. Yeah. Because if you say, this is my work as an accountant, I cannot be told I'm an accountant stroke auditor. I fix an audit report to be like I'm covering steps for wrongdoing. You know, I'm abetting in a crime. So if you do the right thing, so long as you do the right thing, definitely time will come and prove you right. Yeah. It's better to have a cause in life. Live for a cause. If you've chosen the path of integrity, make sure that you follow it 100%. Huwezi kuwa baridi moto. Yeah.
You decide on one side.
Yeah, you decide on one side.
Okay. Yeah. Muraya, from the EACC perspective, and you've heard what Kenyans are saying, and I still have a few more feedback that I'll read. What do you want them to hear this morning in terms of their protection? As we wait for Kasalu's bill, which is the Witness Protection Bill, to come into law, what kind of guarantees are you giving them now from the EACC perspective? Is it okay for them to come forward? And if they do, what should they do? Where should they start?
Thank you, Trevor. I think my message to every viewer is that we should blow the whistle. And let me encourage viewers that whistleblowing has always been going on. As the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, we receive a lot of information, and mainly, as I said, we are activated by information which we have been given by persons out there who are courageous enough to give us information. What they should take as a first precaution is to ensure that they try and give that information safely. Like I've said, we have so many ways of receiving reports, including anonymously. Yeah. So the first thing they should do is not to publicize that they are the ones who are blowing the whistle. Just give the information and give it through the proper channels, and ensure that you have communicated to the right persons. And whether you are using an email, if you are reporting to EACC, report it also to the right institution. Because if you are also reporting it to the wrong persons, then definitely, if you are reporting to a friend of the finance officer, whom you are telling that, I'm going to bust him out on this, I mean, you are actually making a mistake. And we are always out there and also educating persons who are potential whistleblowers, and even educating procurement officers on how to make some of these reports. Some of us, it is actually our responsibility, auditors, accountants, and as he says, professionals. Because if you are an engineer, And like the example that he gave, if you are an engineer and that road is being made the way it is being made, and you know that you are the person who is the resident engineer, you are the one who is protecting the public interest, actually you are at a duty, not simply being a whistleblower. You are at a duty to make that report. Actually, the law also envisages that you have a responsibility, including, the Bribery Act and the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, the Public Officer Ethics Act. They all do transfer a duty to officers, to persons in positions, to make these reports. So these reports are being made. Yeah. Make them safely, of course. Report to the right persons and the right institutions, and if you do report to EACC does have some provisions which we can write to if there is any complaint that we have received, and we can warn. Yeah. And there is a penalty for not for that reprisal if you were to proceed, and that's, of course, whenever we write. Yeah. We also draw their attention to that penalty, and definitely they do obey. So yeah. I would urge them to continue reporting.
What is the biggest challenge you're facing as EACC when it comes to dealing with corruption in the counties? What we call devolved graft?
Of course, one of the biggest challenges is that, corruption, like I said, is organized. Yeah. It's being perpetuated in instances of persons are in agreement, Like if you look at a case of procurement, which is one of the main issues that we're having, a corrupt procurement, or a procurement which is tainted with corruption, you'll find the person who is the service provider or is the contractor is definitely in agreement with the person who is an insider, that is the officer. And when you look at it, among them, because they are both benefiting, because it's also giving a kickback to it, or even the officer who is inside is also a shareholder in this company. The question is, who is going to blow the whistle now? Yeah. These are the persons who have the knowledge. These are the persons who are creating the very evidence which you are supposed to be looking into. So that information coming forth is certainly a major challenge. And of course, when you go to the counties, you'll find those cartels are much even closer knit, because they are from the locality. The officers know even the suppliers, because there are various categories of procurements which are limited to the locality, and therefore it becomes quite a challenge. Yeah. Yes.
Charity, let me bring you back into this. So there's a question here from one Victor. He says that, how do you deal with rogue institutions? And he's citing the Masai Mara University that he says that sacked Sankale, but without zeroing in on that particular institution. What is the best way of dealing with institutions that somehow go against the policies that they also have? Because there's a policy of integrity in each and every institution. Charity, go ahead.
Sorry, I am actually speaking from Isiolo. Yes. So sometimes the connection is a little bit not that good. But I have to stress that there is not going to be a quick fix solution. And I applaud people like our current whistleblower who is here in the studio today, because they paid the price and they're ready to stand for integrity. But also now, thinking about the other institutions, Mr. Morea talked about a comradeship around corruption. And what right now is being formed is a comradeship around anti-corruption. And you can see that the chain can be broken, and other forms of agreements can be made. Agreements with people who are of the same mind, say the Anti-Corruption Commission, the Whistleblowers Commission, individuals who are in Parliament, like Honorable Kasaju, and there are other avenues in which you can actually find support. And of course, institutions like ourselves that are a guardian of the convention will be working with the national stakeholders to continue building this kind of unity around anti-corruption activities. What I would say is that is that we do need to understand what is at stake, the war that we have. Unfortunately, it's not a war that we are seeing, that the blood is being shed in the streets. If we were, perhaps we would take more action. We are seeing a war against the very moral fabric of our society, a war against our children. But because we don't see the blood on the street, we are not taking it with the seriousness that it needs to be taken. And I think as we look at the price that is being paid, again, just around COVID-19, the number of deaths that we saw that could have been avoided, around the vaccines right now that are coming in, the issues that are very linked to corruption, and not just within this country, but at the international scale. If we saw the blood connected to the corruption, then perhaps we would work better. And I think it's about time we started seeing the very high price that is being paid by the people who are voiceless and who are unable to actually come and say that I am a victim of corruption. In every other criminal case, you can see the victim, because you will see if it was a robbery with violence, you will perhaps see the wounds on their body. If it was other issues, you will actually have to see, but we are not seeing this. At least we're not seeing it now. But we are going to pay the very heavy price. And if we do intend to reach, to even come close to getting to Agenda 2030, this is something that we have to take with the seriousness of a war that is against. Yeah.
All right. Let me bring in Honorable Kasalu on this. And there's a very interesting conversation Jasper Mogire is bringing here on Twitter. He says that there's a thin line between whistleblowing and solving issues within the organization that requires wisdom. An employee's first duty is to his or her organization. There are internal processes. How then do you determine that this has failed for you then to go public?
A very good question there, and I think that's when I mentioned about the public officers, if it's acts of 2003, which actually kind of prohibited a public officer against whistleblowing. But we must come out very brave. I mean, it's like you see a crime and you decide to go to your manager and say, you see, this is happening. And actually, probably the manager is the person who is committed the crime. So it has to go beyond the structures of the institution that is employing you. And this goes even to the private sector. So we have to speak beyond the structures that are set within our employers and speak out. And that's why we did this particular bill, because it gives structures on how, in case that you're working a place and you're able to see that there are crimes that have been committed, you are able to go beyond where you work and report and be taken serious, and you're protected. Okay.
I'd like to hear your views on this this interesting conversation that Jasper is bringing up, Jasper Mogire. Let me read it out to you again one more time, Spencer. He's saying that there's a thin line between whistleblowing and solving issues within the organization that requires wisdom. An employee's first duty is to his or her organization. There are internal processes. How do you determine that this has failed?
Thank you. I think that's a very valid question. And maybe it's also, I can also ask a rhetorical question. Okay. What if the whole chain involves management, what we call the board, they are in it. You've tried reporting, they are not acting. You've seen casualties, of the same. Because what I can tell you, beginning with David Munyankei, it's not that we love the publicity. Actually, all my life, I've never even vied for any position. Yeah, I'm not a politician, totally like Honorable Kasalu. I barely speak before large crowds. But you see, I've seen casualties. People tried saying, this is happening. And before you know it, they are gone. Before we came for that, whatever we did, I had like 5 people already gone. Yeah? Involving the same, yes.
Institution.
Yes. So if the fish starts to rot at the head, yeah? And maybe to tell you, it is not only in the public sector, even in the private sector. Because if you see the issue of the mercury in the sugar, yeah, we can choose, all of us can choose to keep quiet, yeah. But what repercussions are we paying for that thing that happened, health-wise, yeah? You see, someone tried to say it was brushed off, but you see, look at the repercussions, the bigger picture. So it's the same way we say that we are destroying the environment, and the late Nobel laureate told us, if you fight the environment, it will fight even harder to you. Yeah. So for us, if we just sit and wait and assume that things will be okay, they won't be okay. Yeah? And you see again, for public, now I'm speaking for those in the public sector, it's actually the Official Secrets Act. Yeah. It prohibits you from speaking to media, from speaking to other agencies, because you are not the figurative head of the institution. Yeah. But if it's the head of the institution doing that, in collaboration with whoever is oversighting them, and you are being told you are the one to clean those reports, because I can tell you as accountants, it is us maybe who helped to produce very good reports, yeah, but vitu kwa ground ni tofauti, yeah, so to speak. So someone has to do it, whether in the private or in the public sector. Yeah. However, we can have all the laws, because when you find, for instance, if I take the Anglo-Leasing case, John Githongo did not whistleblow on government secrets. He only said this one thing is going wrong. And if I read for you like 4 or 5 whistleblowers who I'm well aware of, Bernard Muchere, he was the guy for the Afia House. What happened to him? Transferred, forced early retirement. Yeah? There is one lesser known person known as Elias Kavanda. He was in Kenya Railways. Kicked out of the living quarters. You see the script? It's just the same. But you see, someone has to do something. Yeah? So, however risky, however it is, because if you have conviction that things are not going right, you have the fiduciary duty to bring to the attention of the other people. And Eacc has correctly said it. You don't become foolishly exposing yourself. Because what happens, or what happened to us, before even we came here, we had reached out to DCI. Yeah? So it is not that we came here without going there first. You report, and then not to only 1 or 2 agencies. You can go to 2. We have very many investigative agencies. They have their way of working. They can choose to be a multi-agency, or they delegate to one agency. Okay. Yeah.
Murai, what is your response to Jasper here?
Actually, it simply underscores the need for this law. Because what Jasper should understand is that, like I said in the very beginning, the law transfers the primary responsibility of ensuring that whistleblowing is facilitated to those private and public bodies who are employers. One other significant thing is that it is mandatory to establish policies and procedures for facilitating whistleblowing. That is what it's going to become. And ultimately, it will be a crime for failing to have those procedures and policies in place, and appropriate mechanisms By the time that you're having those policies and procedures, they must adhere to a given standard. And that standard is going to be established by CAJ, the Commission on Administrative Justice. Yeah. So it is not just any policy that you decide and you say, here we have a policy. It must comply with a given standard. And that standard, that policy must be, you must submit it for review, and it must be accepted that it is the right policy, it's the right procedure, and you have the right mechanisms in place, failure to which you are actually committing a crime. Yeah. Then, once everything is in place, and you must also bring it to the knowledge of your employees that that does exist. Yeah. So employees will be able to know the difference between what is that I'm whistleblowing on and to whom I should whistleblow to, and whether it is just an ordinary issue within the company, say in the private sector, or it is something that now will be quantified as a misconduct that is supposed to be whistleblown on. Yeah. And ordinarily, what is supposed to be whistleblown on is something that is actually involving employees within the institution. We are talking about you know, something that is being perpetrated by persons in responsibility. Some people who have the duty not to, but they are doing it. Yeah. We can talk about perhaps caregivers to the elderly. They are the ones who are supposed to be taking care. But if they are also abusing the elderly, then somebody else has really to blow the whistle. Yeah. And that's the kind of a thing. So ultimately, when we have the right infrastructure in place, there will be a clear demarcation as to what amounts to whistleblowing and what amount to resolution of ordinary issues within an institution.
All right. Yes. Charity, what is your reaction to Jasper Mugire on this? What are your thoughts?
I really don't think that there should be a conflict between the two. By the time somebody does find that it's necessary for them to seek a resort outside, and perhaps they do not feel safe within the organization to report it, and they have sought another avenue, and there should be absolutely no retaliation against them for seeking whatever avenue that they feel safe in. And I think these two systems should work in collaboration, and there should be something that ensures that information that needs to be reached or needs to be given is given to safe sources that will actually make sure that something does happen. For example, when it comes to what Mr. Morai has just said, when it comes to taking care of elderly people in, the caregivers, you have to be able to think about the victim. And I keep bringing it back. The victim of these kind of practices is usually a very helpless person, or somebody who cannot be able to speak to themselves. So think, what is the best way in which you're going to be able to make your message heard? And all these structures do take place, and they are not in opposition to each other. They are in support of each other. So I do think that if you find a certain way of reaching out works better for you, then all the better. The information does get where it's supposed to get, resolution is found, and the particular corrupt act ends. And most importantly, we try our best to save what there is of what could have been a major crime.
All right. I'll come to all of you for parting shots in just a bit. Let me bring up some of the feedback, the final bits of it that I left. I read all of them. Let's bring that up, and then we'll take closing remarks from each and every one of you. Kent says the public needs at least one good, positive story of a whistleblower who actually got praised and got commended for it. This law is good, but will it work for ground? Does Sonko qualify to be a whistleblower? That's the question, okay? Winnie Magonda says whistleblower protection is very key in this country of ours. Corruption has messed many, and it has become the norm. Those corrupt walk free and feel they're untouchable. It's sad my former workstation, the whistleblower who was the accountant, was summarily dismissed. Jenga Wakumbu says whistleblowers are never protected, neither will they be. The laws meant for protection is yet to be passed in Parliament, and this delay speaks a lot. Kenya is a nation that disrespects its laws. Okelo Mwalimu says the parliament must go beyond whistleblowers bill in order to secure both the lives and livelihoods of patriotic Kenyans who expose financial mess in public institutions. It's totally unacceptable for one to whistleblow only to lose his or her job and face life threats. Mecca says, I opine that there are sufficient laws in Kenya to protect the whistleblowers. What is lacking is honest implementation. When a whistleblower becomes a witness, the protection is through Witness Protection Act. And if they don't, they remain anonymous. All right. Kasal, we'll come to you now for closing remarks. We're all looking up to you to push this through in Parliament. What do you want the Kenyans to hear from you this morning? What are the guarantees you're giving, and what would you like them to understand?
Let me say that this bill is a step in the right direction towards fighting corruption. And when the time comes and the public is invited to give their views, I want to urge all Kenyans. I want to urge all Kenyans to come out, let them give their views, because as a citizen and a loyal citizen of this country, and it's actually my responsibility as well as a legislator to be a solution provider in eliminating the culture of silence, which when our public funds are being mismanaged. So I want to encourage people to come out, because we want to create a law that protects us. And I know that when we speak, those who mismanage our funds will fear us. But even as you speak, we need a law that is able to protect us.
Okay. Sankali, closing remarks?
This is a very good opportunity for me to actually say that we are working closely because as stakeholders with Parliament, and we are very happy because we've engaged with Honorable Kasalu on the bill, and we look forward to it becoming law, but we also want to complement it through the Public Defenders Fund. We will soon be launching it, and we might as well invite you to be our guest speaker. Yeah, so we want to complement what the government is doing, because we are not in competition. We are actually complementing each other in building a nation that is safe and good for us all, because corruption robs us of our dignity, it robs us of our livelihood. So whistleblowing is not a crime, it is not a bad thing to do, it is just being patriotic and upholding our moral values and making sure that our social fabric remains intact. Okay. So thank you for having me. It's a great honor.
All right.
Okay.
Brian?
Thank you, Trevor. I think mine is to continue encouraging Kenyans out there to continue whistleblowing. Like I said in the beginning, EACC relies a lot on information that we receive from whistleblowers who are courageous enough and are out there and have given us very credible information, which has enabled us to recover assets, because people out there are the ones who know who are accumulating wealth that they cannot account for. And unless that information comes through, then we are not able to even enforce what it is that we already have. Yeah. So it is important for whistleblowing to continue. And it's not that we are entirely without any kind of a law that can protect a whistleblower, not entirely. Like I said, it's not as efficient, because if we have to litigate around it, then that is not very efficient. We want administrative measures that can be done instantly. But it's not that there is no law to protect a whistleblower at all. And we are doing the best that we can with the law that we have. But we are hoping and looking forward to having this particular law on whistleblower protection. And particularly when we also do have a reward scheme for whistleblowers. Actually, we are waiting with a bated breath, because we know that we are going to have a lot of credible information, even for persons who are only hoping to be rewarded for their contribution to the public good.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Charity, closing remarks?
Yes. So after all that has been said, I want to say that Kenya was amongst the first countries to accede to Uncc, showing the will of the country to fight the scourge of corruption. And this is a step in the right direction. And it is really, again, to speak with the rest of the stakeholders here. The reward scheme has worked in other countries, as Mariah talked about now, people who saw that they can get some form of reward and not just punishment for reporting or for being a whistleblower. So this brought quite a bit of a lot of money back into Nigeria when there was a reward scheme set up. So basically my parting words will be to the Kenyans: ask not what your country can do to you, but ask what can you do for your country and for your future and for your children.
All right. Thank you so much for making time this morning. Julius Muraya, Deputy Director, Civil Litigation and Asset Recovery at the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Honorable Dr. Irene Kasalu, Women Representative for Kitui and also the sponsor of the Whistleblowers Bill. We certainly hope that goes through. And CPA Spencer Sankale, former accountant, Masai Mara University, and now a consultant as well. And Charity Kagwi, Head of Criminal Justice and Anti-Corruption at the UNODC. Thank you for making time this morning. This is a conversation we'll keep having, considering we're only 15 days away from the International Anti-Corruption Day. There's something that Spencer Sankale said during the heat of the Mara heist. Said one thing: it's better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. Take up the mantle. When you see something, say something. All right? Bye for now. My name is Trevor Mbije. It's always a pleasure having you with us here. We must all join hands and fight corruption in this nation, lest we bequeath a tattered nation to the next generation. All right, so now, coming up next is Willis Raburu with Health and Lifestyle. They're talking about diabetes, I believe, right? Yes, and also a bit of working out. See you in a bit.